The Gaza Strip, a small piece of land, home to millions, caught in a conflict that seems endless. In May 2025, tensions erupted again. Violence flared. The familiar sounds of war returned. Bombs, explosions, gunfire, a cycle of destruction repeating itself. This time, hospitals became targets, places of healing transformed into scenes of carnage. The world watched in horror as images emerged. Hospitals reduced to rubble, patients killed in their beds, medical workers struggling to cope. The attacks on hospitals marked a new low in the conflict, a stark reminder of the human cost of war. The world condemned the violence, demands for a ceasefire echoed, but the fighting continued, trapping civilians in a nightmare. Fear and uncertainty gripped the population. The future seemed bleak, hope, a distant flicker in the darkness. Hospitals, by their very nature, are supposed to be safe havens. They are places where people go to find solace and healing, where the sick and wounded can seek refuge from the chaos of the outside world. Places where the sick and wounded can seek refuge. These institutions are meant to be sanctuaries of care and compassion, where the primary focus is on saving lives and alleviating suffering, where doctors and nurses work tirelessly to save lives. These healthcare professionals dedicate their lives to the well-being of others, often working long hours under immense pressure to provide the best possible care. But in Gaza, even hospitals have become battlegrounds. The sanctity of these medical facilities has been violated, turning places of healing into scenes of devastation and despair. Targets in a conflict that shows little regard for human life. The relentless airstrikes and bombings have not spared hospitals, making it clear that no place is truly safe in this war-torn region. The May 2025 bombings of the European Hospital and the Nasser Hospital sent shockwaves through the international community. These attacks were a stark reminder of the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. These attacks were not isolated incidents. They were part of a larger, more disturbing pattern of violence against healthcare facilities in Gaza, highlighting the dire situation faced by medical professionals and patients alike. They were part of a larger pattern of attacks on healthcare facilities in Gaza. This systematic targeting has left the healthcare system in shambles, struggling to cope with the overwhelming needs of the population. Attacks that have left the healthcare system in ruins and the population deeply traumatized. The destruction of medical infrastructure has had a profound impact on the ability to provide essential care, forcing many to seek treatment in makeshift tents and temporary shelters. The bombings of the European Hospital and the Nasser Hospital were particularly devastating. These facilities were critical to the healthcare system in Gaza, and their loss has been felt deeply by the community. The European Hospital, located in Khan Yunis, was a major medical facility serving a large population. Its destruction has left a significant gap in the availability of medical services in the region. The attack on the hospital left dozens dead and many more injured. The immediate aftermath was chaotic, with emergency responders working tirelessly to evacuate the wounded and provide urgent care. Among the dead were patients, doctors, and nurses. The loss of these dedicated healthcare professionals is a tragic blow to the community, and their absence will be felt for years to come. The European Hospital, once a beacon of hope, now lay in ruins. Its walls, which once echoed with the sounds of healing and recovery, now stood silent and shattered, a testament to the brutal reality of the conflict. The streets around the hospital, once bustling with life, were now eerily quiet, littered with debris and the remnants of a once thriving community. Dust and smoke filled the air, obscuring the wreckage. The acrid smell of burning lingered, a constant reminder of the devastation that had taken place. The smell of concrete dust and burnt metal hung heavy. Every breath taken was a painful reminder of the destruction that had been wrought upon this place. A grim reminder of the violence that had unfolded. The once vibrant cityscape was now a ghostly shadow of its former self, with buildings reduced to rubble and streets deserted. Witnesses described scenes of chaos and horror, families torn apart, children crying for their parents, and people running in every direction trying to escape the relentless bombardment. The ground shook as bombs rained down on the hospital. The deafening explosions were followed by the terrifying sound of collapsing structures. Patients screamed in terror as the building collapsed around them. The once safe haven had turned into a death trap, with no place to hide from the onslaught. Medical staff, overwhelmed and under-equipped, struggled to treat the wounded. their faces etched with despair, they worked tirelessly amidst the chaos, trying to save as many lives as possible. The air was thick with the smell of blood and antiseptic. The emergency room, once a place of healing, was now a scene of utter chaos and desperation. The attack on the European hospital was a tragedy for the people of Gaza. Families mourned the loss of their loved ones, and the community was left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. It was also a violation of international law. The world watched in horror as the sanctity of a medical facility was so brutally disregarded. Hospitals are protected under international humanitarian law. They are meant to be safe havens, places where the wounded and sick can find refuge and care. Targeting them is a war crime. Such acts are condemned by the international community, yet they continue to occur with alarming frequency. Yet the attacks continue, with impunity. The cycle of violence seems unending, leaving behind a trail of destruction and heartbreak. The bombings of the European hospital and the Nasser hospital have left a trail of destruction and despair. These attacks have not only demolished critical healthcare infrastructure, but have also shattered the sense of safety and security for the residents of Gaza. The relentless bombings have added to the already staggering human cost of the conflict, with countless lives lost and many more injured. The devastation is visible everywhere, from the rubble of homes to the broken bodies of the victims. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have been displaced from their homes, forced to flee with little more than the clothes on their backs. The mass displacement has created a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions. Many have sought refuge in UN-run schools and shelters which are now overflowing with people. These makeshift shelters are struggling to provide even the most basic necessities. Conditions in these shelters are often cramped and unsanitary, with limited access to clean water and sanitation facilities. The overcrowding has made it difficult to maintain hygiene, increasing the risk of disease outbreaks. The physical injuries are only part of the story. The emotional and psychological scars left by the conflict are deep and enduring. The psychological trauma of war runs deep, affecting every aspect of life. The constant fear and uncertainty have left many struggling to cope with the mental toll of the conflict. Children in particular have been profoundly affected by the violence. Many suffer from nightmares, unable to escape the horrors they have witnessed. Anxiety and bedwetting are common among the young as they struggle to find a sense of normalcy in a world turned upside down by conflict. The constant fear of bombardment has taken a toll on their mental health, leaving them in a state of perpetual anxiety and fear. The bombings of hospitals have also had a devastating impact on Gaza's healthcare system. The destruction of medical facilities has severely hampered the ability to provide care to those in need. Hospitals are struggling to cope with the influx of casualties, with many facilities operating beyond capacity. The sheer number of injured has overwhelmed the healthcare system. Medical supplies are running low, and the blockade has made it difficult to bring in the necessary resources. The shortage of essential medicines and equipment is putting lives at risk, and the constant threat of attack makes it dangerous for medical staff to do their jobs. Despite the risks, doctors and nurses continue to work tirelessly, providing care under the most challenging conditions. Section 5. Inside Gaza's hospitals. A grim reality. Stepping inside one of Gaza's remaining hospitals is a sobering experience. The air is thick with the smell of antiseptic and despair. The corridors are overflowing with patients. Many lie on stretchers in hallways, waiting for a bed to become available. The doctors and nurses work tirelessly, but they are overwhelmed. They lack the basic supplies and equipment they need to treat their patients. Power outages are frequent, forcing them to perform surgery by flashlight. The situation is dire. In the intensive care unit, patients cling to life. Machines beep and whir, monitoring their vital signs. Families huddle around their loved ones, praying for a miracle. But for many, there is little hope. Section 6. The politics of war, a tangled web. The conflict in Gaza is complex, with a long and bloody history. At its heart lies the struggle between Israel and the Palestinians over land and resources. But the conflict is also fueled by political ideologies, religious differences, and international power dynamics. The recent escalation in violence came after a period of relative calm. Hamas, the militant group that controls Gaza, had released an Israeli-American soldier it had been holding captive. In return, Israel had eased its blockade of the Gaza Strip. However, the fragile truce did not last. Hamas continued to fire rockets into Israel, and Israel responded with airstrikes on Gaza. The situation quickly spiraled out of control, leading to the current crisis. Section 7. International response. Calls for restraint, pleas for aid. The international community has condemned the violence in Gaza and called for a ceasefire. The United Nations has called for an independent investigation into the bombings of hospitals and other civilian targets. However, these calls have so far gone unheeded. Several countries have pledged humanitarian aid to Gaza. However, getting aid into the besieged territory is a challenge. Israel controls all access points to Gaza, and it has been slow to allow aid convoys through. The international community must do more to pressure Israel to end its blockade of Gaza and allow unhindered access for humanitarian aid. The people of Gaza are in desperate need of food, water, medicine, and shelter. Section 8. Relief efforts, a lifeline for Gaza. Despite the challenges, humanitarian organizations are working tirelessly to provide relief to the people of Gaza. The Red Cross, the United Nations, and other aid groups are delivering food, water, medicine, and other essential supplies. These relief efforts are a lifeline for the people of Gaza, but they are not enough. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is immense, and it will take a concerted international effort to address it. The world cannot stand by and watch as Gaza descends into chaos. We must demand an end to the violence, an end to the blockade, and a just and lasting peace for all. Section 9. Conclusion. A plea for peace, a call for action. The conflict in Gaza is a tragedy for all involved. It is a conflict with no winners, only losers. The people of Gaza are trapped in a cycle of violence and despair. They deserve better. The international community must act now to end the bloodshed. We must demand a ceasefire, an end to the blockade, and a resumption of peace talks. We must also provide the people of Gaza with the humanitarian assistance they so desperately need. The conflict in Gaza is a test of our humanity. We cannot afford to fail. We must choose peace over war, hope over despair, and justice over oppression. The future of Gaza, and indeed the future of humanity, depends on it.